at the time, and I tell the story only because it's fact, Cesc Fabregas, I remember when I met Alex, he said, well, David, what do you think about, would you be interested in Cesc Fabregas when we were talking? And I said, well, definitely. And that was really that was probably the main sign we were trying to get was Cesc Fabregas in the summer.
In this next clip, you will see David Moyes talk about, surprise, surprise, Manchester United and what went wrong and why. And afterwards, I am going to explain why he's wrong. Here's Dave.
Just going back to United on the recruitment side, when you first went to United, obviously, Sir Alex Ferguson had left, David Gill left. What did you find there when you first went in terms of recruitment, how you were going to recruit? Because it was a bit of a mess that summer, not on your side, but just generally with the club.
But it had been done, you talked about how it was done. Manchester, I say, and a little bit, my plans were not to do anything different from what Alex done, but I couldn't be Alex. No, I couldn't manage like Alex. I had to manage them a little bit, but I wasn't going to come in and change the philosophies of Manchester United. I was going to try and continue everything what I thought he'd been doing right. But at the time, and I tell the story only because it's fact, Cesc Fabregas, I remember when I met Alex, he said, well, David, what do you think about, would you be interested in Cesc Fabregas when we were talking? And I said, well, definitely. And that was really that was probably the main sign we were trying to get was Cesc Fabregas in the summer. And I spoke to Cesc, and I saw Cesc not too long ago, and actually he had said, if I start the first game for Barcelona, then I'm not coming. If I don't start, then I would come. So I was going to have to wait right to that time to find out. And Gareth Bale was the other one, because my interpretation, and you boys are far, far more equipped to talk about Man United than me, is my interpretation with Man United was that Man United were great wingers, great wide players, traditional from George Best, you name them. All through the years, you could think of Man United having great wide players. And so I thought Gareth Bale would be the one in it. And we actually, to be fair to the club, they'd offered more money. They tried to get Gareth Bale, but Eddie's heart set. But we took it right to the wire to try and get him. Wow. So when you don't get that, there wasn't really I didn't really have a backup to what I wanted after those two players. What I always thought was, and I brought Marouane Fellaini, he was the only one who came in. Marouane Fellaini, the only thought with Marouane was because I'm thinking, they'll be going away to Stoke City, they'll be games like this, and I'm saying he'll give. And actually, to be fair to Marouane Fellaini, he had quite a good career at Manchester United. It wasn't in Bainesy we tried to bring because as a backup for Patrice at the time, which we didn't get. So they were really where we were at the time. But when I lost the first two signings, or didn't get them in the end, it made, really my start was terrible because the window wasn't good enough. Was that to do with MD at the club? Not really. That was just to do with just not getting top targets.
Was Ed on tour and said publicly to the media that he was coming back to sign Fabregas and Bale? Was that right at the time?
It might have done something like that, but it was difficult. I remember Gary just telling you this. I remember we went on tour right away. We were away in Asia, and I'd taken the media were going out for dinner. We'd arrived in Thailand, I think we were just going for dinner, and I'd said to them, at that time we had Van Persie and Wayne, and I said, well, look, we'll be hoping that Van Persie will play up top, Wayne could play in behind, or they can play together. And that me saying, I remember the media writing a story saying, Wayne will be behind Van Persie. But we were talking about Wayne playing as a number 10 or just behind the and that was really the start of what it means to be at Manchester United. You could easily be interpreted wrongly in some ways. So
the media putting a lot of pressure. They do, don't they, on Man United? I think there's so much pressure. When you say dead man walking, I feel like Ten Hag was that guy, wasn't he, after? Really?
I've got the win records of yourself, Louis van Gaal, Jose Mourinho, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Erik Ten Hag are very similar in that early 50s. And I said last week that, why has Manchester United become a graveyard for fantastic managers and really good players with potential? You obviously were the first, manager after Sir Alex. What's your feeling of why it's gone as it has? Obviously, at the time, no one knew when you left that it was going to be as bad as it has. They spent 1.8 billion quid. Yeah. And you obviously spent a fraction of that 1.8 billion. Yeah. But what is it that you put it down to, even obviously watching Erik Ten Hag in the last 12 months?
I've got to say, I remember getting in, Gary, and we were speaking as well, and the other people around who you know well, I had a feeling that it was going to take a long time to fix. Now, I couldn't come out and say, hey, this is going to take 6 years to fix. Not because I actually thought that the team that just won the championship, I was thrilled to be taking over the team that just won the Premiership, I should say. And I'm thinking, well, this is great, a real chance. But there was also a team which was on the verge of having to change around as well.
On the decline slightly.
And I actually think that, I think probably the loyalty to the players, to Sir Alex, in a way, no matter who you are coming in, I think they had a great loyalty to the manager, which was amicable of them to have that. But I did feel that it was going to take a longer time to change around. I'd also didn't have David Gill, who was hugely influential over Sir Alex and helpful round the club. But I had a people say I had a great relationship with Alex and David Gill. We'd meet once a month for a bit of dinner. We'd talk about things and whatnot. I think the whole thing changing around meant it difficult. But I hear you people all talking a lot about Manchester United, and I think to myself and I completely exclude myself from this, Louis van Gaal and Jose Mourinho would arguably be right up there in the top half a dozen managers worldwide who you would say, I'd like him to be the manager of my team. And they found it not possible to get what they want. So
all I hear in this clip from David Moyes, and all I see looking at all the other people on the panel, is an elephant in the room that's not being addressed. And that is, David Moyes just wasn't good enough. All he's saying there is, we didn't get Cesc Fabregas. Or he says, you have to wait until the last minute. So I want to see if I start the first game for Barcelona. And if I don't start the first game for Barcelona, then I am going to come to Manchester United. David Moyes was getting fobbed off by Cesc Fabregas. That's what was happening. But he's just too blind to see, because why would Cesc Fabregas leave Barcelona, prime Barcelona, to go to Manchester United without Sir Alex Ferguson? He just wouldn't. Why would he? I even think Pep Guardiola was the manager at the time as well of Barcelona. And it's when they had Messi and Xavi and Iniesta and Busquets and Dani Alves and Puyol and Piqué and all those guys. Why would he come to Manchester United at that time? He just wouldn't. So that's what was happening with Cesc. And then he's saying, oh yeah, but Gareth Bale, and we didn't get him either, blah, 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 blah. Again, he was getting fobbed off because Gareth Bale saw what was happening at Real Madrid, because if I'm not mistaken, they had just had Ancelotti take over. And they had Ronaldo there, they had Kaká there, they had Xavi Alonso was there, they had Sergio Ramos. He was walking into a world-class side. So, again, why would he go to Manchester United without Sir Alex Ferguson? And he supported Real Madrid as a kid. So he's saying that. And he's like, I didn't have a backup plan. Well, duh. And the elephant in the room is David Moyes just wasn't good enough. Because if he was good enough, he would have had a backup plan. That's it. That's it at the end of the day. David Moyes just wasn't good enough. And then he's saying, but I didn't have David Gale. Or, what was the other thing that he said? Or I had an ageing squad. That squad, the season before, won the league by about 11 points. Walked the league. That squad was young enough to have won the league the following season under the right management. If Jose Mourinho had walked into that team, they probably would have won the league. They certainly would have come in the top four. No problem whatsoever, because they still had the experience and they still had enough gas in the tank to be able to do something. But he took that team from first by 11 points to what? 7th? In less than 12 months. And the only thing that had changed was the manager. So what irritates me about this kind of thing is a lack of accountability. And why can't someone like Roy Keane, he's more than happy to criticise players on pitches and whatnot. Why? And calling them out for their not nonsense. It's just a nonsense. All of that. That was a rubbish Roy Keane impression. I'll take that on the chin. But why can't he just say, well, David, do you not think that perhaps you were just not good enough? Oh, I needed time. You just weren't good enough, pal. You just weren't good enough. And that's all I hear. Now, he mentioned there at the end that Louis van Gaal and Jose Mourinho, those were elite level managers that you'd want at your club, blah, 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 blah. Right, well, he does have a point. Now, when Louis van Gaal took over, he finished 4th, no problem, in his first season. Like, no problem. Loads of injuries. He even had Di Maria spitting the dummy out because he couldn't manage him properly. But he finished 4th. And then what did he do? He got rid of all the best players in that summer. And then he eventually got sacked. So he messed up too. Now, Jose Mourinho took over from Louis van Gaal, and he didn't have the experienced players in the team that he likes to have. That's why he was always wanting to buy the experienced heads like Zlatan, and he wanted to buy Perisic at the time as well, who was about 29 or 30. But again, we all know what Jose Mourinho's like. Jose Mourinho, he likes to have an experienced squad who can handle him. So by the time that team got to Jose Mourinho, it wasn't quite as experienced. So yeah, I'm just kind of tired of this notion, oh, David Moyes didn't get enough time, or he's got the same win percentage as blah, 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 blah. In conclusion, he took over the champions and he messed it up. It's as simple as that. That's it. But what do you guys think? Thoughts in the comments, please.